Yeah, this story is set in the 50s, 1951, 52, and we begin the story in Ireland with Ailish. She's leaving this small town that she's grown up in called Enniscorthy, and she moves to New York and suffers very extreme homesickness as most people would at that time, and as most people kind of still do. And it's about her kind of surviving for the first while and how gradually that starts to lift and she starts to actually have her own life there, and she gets married, and then something brings her back to Ireland, a tragedy at home, and it's really about whether, you know, she meets this other person who offers her this other life in Ireland, and if she should stay there where she's always going to have that sort of safety, I guess, that you only get in a place where you've grown up, or whether she should go back to this life that she's created for herself. So.
You're working with an astonishing cast. Can you talk about working with two very different leading men and, of course, the amazing Julie Walters?
Julie's the best. Julie's the best. She's so funny, and we only had her for a little over a week, I think, but everyone who makes films knows that dinner scenes are not fun at all, and to have her there and to have all the great actresses that we had in that room made it bearable. But we were sick of eating stew by the end of it. Julie made it better though. And the boys are brilliant. I mean, they're both so different, the way they work, the performances that they brought to this story. And yeah, and it was a pleasure. I had known Donal from years before, and we were supposed to do loads of different things together that never worked out, so we had kind of been destined to work together a little bit, and we had great fun. And then to work with someone like Emery, who works in a very different way to me and kind of does an awful lot of preparation before a role, I think it was great to have that like kind of yin and yang dynamic between us. So.
Well, Tony's an Italian boy in New York who's a plumber, who meets Saoirse's character and they fall in love, and then she's brought back to Ireland because of some family stuff, and there's the conflict of the two worlds, you know. Well, I mean, I think that the metaphor for that is for her journey of either becoming an American, becoming a New Yorker, or going back to Ireland, to her old home. And, you know, in some ways that metaphor may be growing versus staying the same, leaving versus staying, and all that kind of stuff, you know. Well, John just has a great brain for literature and understanding literature in a more macrocosmic eye. So as an actor, you always think in the microcosm because it's your character, this moment, that it's so much smaller, but he can bring it back into the bigger world of the film, and that can be helpful, you know.
You're working with a beautiful actress in Saoirse Ronan. What makes her such a special talent? And can you talk about how you work together to create that wonderful chemistry you seem to have?
I think that what makes her so special is that she does the work, she's serious about the work, and she delivers on the work. And I think that's where the chemistry came from. Was I'm a similar type of guy, and like we both take this seriously. So neither one of us were gonna let each other get away with the moment. You know, it was always gonna be there. But within that, what makes it special is when you can work with someone where in the middle of a take you can both just crack a smile, you know what I mean, and understand that too. I think they're gonna overall just think Ailish was right, you know, in the end.
It's a period story only in one way, but it's a story of all our lives, any of us who've ever had the courage to leave home, or his parents had the courage to put us out of home. That first year when you move from wherever you're from. I was from a small town in Ireland. I moved to Barcelona, I moved to Dublin, I've moved a number of times in my life. That first month or that first year, you're open to suggestion in all sorts of ways. You can fall in love in all sorts of funny ways and out of love in all sorts of funny ways. So while it's set in the 50s, it could be set now or next year. Well, we looked up earlier on when we came into the square and saw the Brooklyn sign, and you know, it's unbelievable because anything like that comes from something very small, comes from a first sentence, and comes from a time before the first sentence where you're toying with the idea, you're working out how you'll do it. And the last thing you think about, and in a way the last thing you must think about is this might end up, you know, in Leicester Square. You work sentence by sentence on it. So it's been a great journey and it's been a great team. I mean, working with Saoirse Ronan and working with Nick Hornby has been, well, it's been problem-free, but B, in the last while, it's been a lot of fun, and working with people of such talent, it's really been great. And, novelists, your job is to live in the shadows, to stay home, to be quiet. And it's lovely ever so often to getting out into the light, as long as you know, soon, very soon, I'll be back in a room again, working.
It's about a young girl who emigrates to America from a small town in Ireland in the 50s, and then has to return home to Ireland because of a tragedy, just when things are beginning to sort of go right for her in America. And then she's forced to choose between two countries and basically two men. And her dilemma and that choice, it's really about which life she's going to lead and who she's going to be, in essence. And it's a brilliant way of dramatising what happens when anybody leaves their homeland, that you're not from the country you moved to, but equally when you go back home, you're not quite from there anymore either, and people view you differently and you view the place differently. And so it's a brilliant way of exploring that split, and it's very emotional. So we've got the fabulous Saoirse Ronan, who's playing the lead and is giving a most astonishing performance. It's really emotional. And it's very close to her. That she's playing in that role is what she went through herself in the year leading up to shooting. Then you've got Donald Gleeson, who's as great an actor as you get, doing a wonderful performance as her Irish suitor, and Emery Cohen, who's playing the American love interest, who's fantastic and has got a completely different energy to Donald Gleeson in Ireland. So great cast.
I play Nancy. Nancy is, I can hear her, the voice. Nancy is Eilish's best friend. So I just said it down there. I am the Cilla Black of Enniscorthy. It is my aim to set her up with Jim so that she doesn't go back to Brooklyn, and we can go out and foursome dates all the time and have babies at the same time and live happily ever after. That is my intention in this film. I think that's one of the things that makes this film so relatable. Most people know what it's like to move somewhere and, miss home and start again and lose your safety blanket. So I think it's instantly relatable. For me, home is always going to be Ireland. I'm come from a big family in Ireland and I love every single one of them. Mightn't tell them that much. And I live in London, and I always say I'm going home. But when you go home and you haven't lived away, I think the film and Brooklyn, Colum's book, really sum up how it's difficult to slip back in because you've changed as a person. It's difficult to slip back into who you were, really.
Looking back on it now, it doesn't feel as though it was that difficult. I think probably I didn't feel like that at the time. It's a very simple, elegant book, and I suppose the main technical challenge was that we knew we'd have to turn the volume up a little bit for it to be a movie. The other thing is that the two male protagonists, one of them comes in very late, and it's really tricky to try and get him to present himself as a viable alternative for her. Colm does it incredibly in the book. You reach this point in the book and you think, no, come on, you're not gonna persuade me that this guy is for real. And he does, and I had to do that too. You show it in a city like London, and I don't know what percentage of people come from somewhere else, but it's enormous. And we have so many Irish people in London. We have so many Australians, so many New Zealanders, but also, particularly at the moment, there are literally millions of people who have had to abandon their home and their way of life. And I think by getting inside this one girl's head, and that's all the film is about, is this one girl, then you start to imagine what it must be like repeated millions of times over. The thing that's always a relief to go back to with prose is that you have as much room as you want. If you want to write 500 pages, you write 500 pages. If you want a scene to go on for 20 pages, then it can. The thing with screenplay always is the economy, that you cannot have a 20-page scene. You can't have a 5-page scene. A 5-page scene is enormous, so you have to pare back. But the thing that keeps me coming back is getting to work with other people. the maddening thing about film is that you can't learn anything from the previous project because every single project is different. You know, you're working with a different director, different cast, usually different producers. Although I've worked with these, one of these is my wife, so I've worked with her a bit before. So you cannot recreate the experience of the previous movie on the next one. I think that the only thing that I've learned being adapted and I guess adapting is that you have to choose the right person and you have to trust them and then let them get on with it. That's all I can say. John's a kind of dream director for a writer because he feels a little bit like an editor with a book. That the only notes he has are when he says, I think what you were trying to do here is this, and maybe if you tried that instead, your meaning or your effect would become clearer for us. And you think, oh yes, of course, he's completely right. He's a theatre director. He serves writing, and you know, of course, as a screenplay writer, that's what you want. And then Saoirse is just absolutely incredible. I mean, you see the whole story played out in her face, and it's so kind of subtle and elegant, and she's exactly the right age now to do it.